Hey guys, Nathan with Duck River Honey, and I guess I'm shooting on location today from the Duck River. You know, this farm's been in my family for close to 100 years, and we're really blessed to have the river run through it. And we've got access here and a sandbar down here where we can put in kayaks, and we limb line for catfish in the summer, and I smallmouth fish quite a bit year round. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to catch smallmouth. I just love it. So we've got a little camping area and picnic area that I have built down here over the years, and my son asked me yesterday to camp out down at the river. So he's 5 and he's getting to an age where, he's starting to want to do more of those type things, and I'm just thrilled about it. So anytime he wants to do that, I try to make it happen if it's possible. So we set up the tent, and I've got a little wood stove that goes in it, and we slept down here last night, got down into the low 30s, and just had a good time. I've got some bee work to do up on top of the hill, and I thought I would shoot a video about a topic that was brought to mind by a video that Mike Berry did. If you haven't checked out his channel, I would encourage you to do so. He does a really good job, and just a wealth of knowledge. And he was talking about how he really doesn't like to get into his hives very much in the wintertime, and various reasons why. And I wanted to expand on that topic because I agree completely with that statement. So let's get up to the bee yard, and we'll talk about the 3 things that you need to do to your hives during winter, and also the 2 reasons, and I believe only 2 reasons, you have to open your hives in wintertime. Let's get to it. Guys, first thing that you need to do to your hives in the wintertime, monitor for dead outs. And this is not difficult to do. All I'm going to do is put my ear up to the hives and listen for humming. That's it. Pretty simple. Yep, this hive's alive. All right, so all the hives are alive. I heard humming in every one. A couple of them were pretty quiet, so I tapped on the top lid and woke them up some. Didn't get them aggravated. You don't have to aggravate them. The point of this is just to make sure that they are alive. So what I'm doing by checking to make sure that all my hives are alive is monitoring for dead outs. Now, a dead out is a dead hive, and that does happen. In hobby beekeeping, you will have hives die occasionally. Sometimes they're just weak and they perish over winter. Well, that dead out has a mass of dead bees in it. It has honey, it has pollen, it has honeycomb, and all of those resources are kind of okay during winter when it's cold. It's like they're in a refrigerator. But if you wait until it gets warm, you'll have flies move in, and you'll have maggots on the dead bees. Wax moths and small hive beetles will move in and just make a mess of the hive. You'll lose all of the resources, and you will have a rotten, stinking mess to clean up. So it's much better to get to a dead out before that happens. Do it while it's still cold. And that's the first reason that you would get into a hive in wintertime, which is to preserve those resources so that you'll be able to give them to another hive. Now let's talk about the second thing you need to do during winter, which is monitor for stores. And again, I can do this without getting into the hives. So let's get to it. All right, so I just checked all of my hives for stores. All I did was take the brick off the top, tilt up the back of the hive, just pick up the back of the hive to feel the weight. So I can't really tell you how heavy is heavy enough. It's kind of a feel thing. But if you have several hives, you can compare them to each other and then just worry about the lightest hives. If you pick up a hive and you think, wow, they're light, then this brings us to the second reason that you would get into a hive in wintertime, which is emergency feeding. Starvation is a major cause of mortality over winter for honeybee colonies. And if you fear that a colony is going to starve before the nectar flow starts in spring, you can get into that hive and give them honey frames, or you can give them fondant or sugar, and that can get them through until the nectar flow begins. Now, I specifically mention honey frames, fondant, or sugar because if you try to feed sugar syrup in the winter time, the bees have a hard time drawing the moisture out of that, and it can introduce more moisture into the hive, which can cause condensation problems and actually do more harm than good. So focus on the solid foods, honey frames, fondant, sugar. All right, and this is going to be the third thing that you need to do to your hives or can do to your hives in wintertime. I choose to, some people don't, and that is get in a wintertime oxalic acid vaporization treatment. Now, I've already done one round of OAV on these hives, and I'll leave a link to that up here. During that treatment, I monitored for mites afterward and identified a couple colonies that had a higher mite load than all of my other hives. So I'm going to give them a second round of oxalic acid vapor during this time of year when they are either broodless or have a very small amount of brood, because those mites are going to be exposed. Hopefully with the 2 rounds of treatments at this time of year, those hives are going to go into spring and just explode because they are very healthy and they have very low pest and parasite loads. So let's get on to that treatment. Now, I say that this is something you can do, but you don't have to do, because there is a treatment-free beekeeping movement out there, and I respect the heck out of those guys. It is really pretty tough to be really successful as a treatment-free beekeeper. It takes some pretty specific management practices. If you're a treatment-free beekeeper, I respect that. And this is not something you have to do, but if you are going to do it, this is a really good time of year to do it. All I'm going to do here is wait until it gets up to temp. It'll come up to about 460. And then I'll pop one of these caps into the tub here. And when I turn it back over, it will vaporize the oxalic acid and shoot it into the hive. That stuff is pretty rough on your lungs. It's rough on mites and human lungs. It's not hard on the bees. So I've got a full face respirator with acid gas vapor cartridges on it here. The vaporizer will come down in temperature and then will gradually start coming back up. When it gets back up to temp, it's ready to go to the next hive. Same thing here. Invert, insert the cup, insert into the hive. Tap it and let it heat. So during winter, the colony's already under stress. There's nothing blooming, there's nothing coming in. They're broodless, they're just kind of in hunker down and survive the winter mode. So they're stressed. Now they've got a sealed up hive, and anytime you go into the hive, you are disturbing that colony. If you pull frames out, anytime you pull a frame out, you take the risk of rolling or pinching a queen. which could be the end of the colonies if they're broodless at that point. So I think that there is more risk than there is reward for going into a hive in wintertime. And if you look at the reasons that you would typically get into a hive throughout the year, it's going to be swarm management, which would include splits. It's going to include supering in the honey flow. It will include queen issues, checking to make sure you're queen right. And it'll also include pest and parasite management. So none of those are really an issue at this time of year. The hives are not going to swarm this time of year. We don't have to worry about supers. We're not in a honey flow. If the hive is queenless, there's nothing we can do about it. There's no drones in the air. You can't mate a queen. You can't buy a queen. So there's nothing that you can do about it. You're much better off if you have a queenless hive this time of year to wait. You've got fat winter bees. They should be able to hold on until it warms up. And when it warms up, you can do a combine with a stronger hive and save those resources and save those bees. You move on to pests and parasites. This is a great time of year to knock back your Varroa counts, but wax moth and small hive beetles and all that stuff, it's too cold for those guys to really be active. This is not the time of year for them. So it's sort of a dead period in the beekeeper's hive management, and I think it should be. I think as beekeepers, we need to sort of reflect what the bees are doing. And if they're in hunker down and survive the winter mode, we should let them do that. So guys, that covers the 3 things that I think you need to do during winter time to your hives as a hobby beekeeper. And again, that is going to be monitoring for deadouts. Make sure they're alive, make sure they've got plenty to eat. And if you are a believer in treating for Varroa, then it's a great time to get in an oxalic acid vaporization treatment. Now, the only 2 reasons that I see to get into a hive in wintertime is to clean up a dead out or emergency feeding. Guys, if you have any thoughts on this, I'd appreciate you leaving it in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoy the video, give me a like. That helps the channel, helps me out, helps get the video out to other beekeepers. And while you're at it, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I am growing my operation this year. I'm trying to go from 9 hives to about 30 and build a profitable hobby beekeeping operation. So if you subscribe and hit that bell, you can follow along with me throughout the year. This will be an ongoing affair. Until next time.